Welcome back, everybody. So the National Energy Regulator of South Africa has given Eskom the go-ahead to make tariff adjustments. It says the struggling power utility can recover just over 13 billion rand it lost last year. NERSA says it took the decision after analysing the difference between Eskom's uncontrollable costs, its actual costs and revenues for last year. The Energy Regulator says it also needed to balance the interests of both Eskom and the public. Eskom recently blamed NERSA for using the lockdown as an excuse to delay dealing with outstanding matters between the two entities, including the application for this particular outcome. With us now is NERSA's Nhlanhla Gumede to talk about this change that Eskom gets the green light to hike prices. Good to have you. Thanks very much for joining us, Nhlanhla.
Good morning, Leanna. Good morning to your visit.
So let's begin with some clarity here. The 13 billion that has been approved by NERSA, is this a portion of the 27 billion rand that Eskom had applied for initially?
Correct.
So that's what we are dealing with now. What you're saying is that the approval is based on the information at its disposal and the analysis of Eskom's regulatory clearing account, or RCA. Can you give us details about this? What does this all mean?
Okay, the South African electricity pricing system works on what is called a multi-year pricing regime, which is in fact a way of predicting what the costs for the coming years will be, and then of course the associated revenue based on the sales that are anticipated. Mm-hmm. Now, because it's a forecast, when the year has gone past, you actually say, in a year in review, what has actually transpired. So, for instance, there may have been an assumption that the plants at Eskom would have performed at a particular level. But if that level is not achieved, and then additional measures are deployed, it then results in an additional cost that was not anticipated in the multi-year pricing regime.
Yeah.
The RCA process then allows the licensee to then come back and say, these are my actual costs versus what was anticipated. Either it then owes the consumer money, or the consumer owes them. So what we then do as NERSA is then analyze this and ask the question whether yes, maybe the costs would have been incurred, but was it incurred prudently? If the answer to that is yes, or not to the extent that Eskom is asking, we then adjust that accordingly. Which is why they applied for 27 billion rands.
Yeah.
And only got 13.
The understanding of RCA is that it is a shortfall in Eskom's books. All right. So NERSA states that it does acknowledge certain governance failures at Eskom. So the question is, why should the money be coming from the public? Why should it be recovered from South Africans?
No. These amounts that are applied for are actually real costs. For instance, let me just quote one. The open cycle gas, the open turbine cost. They in the MYPD or the financial year 2019, the regulator had approved that Eskom can use 345 million rands worth of diesel. However, because of whatever realities, they actually use 3 12.7 billion rand. But what we then say, although when we only approve 486, we're not saying that that's linked to corruption. All we are simply saying is that was that not due to the fact that the Eskom plants were not operating to the level that they should be operating at.
So, but I want to get back to the public's role in all of this. So, in essence, this implies that the public will have to pay that 13.3 billion rand in hiked tariffs. But is this outside of the expected annual tariff hikes for this year? Will this be on top of that?
Yes, unfortunately, it will only be implemented in the coming years. So there still needs to be an implementation plan developed.
Yeah.
Which will include an understanding of what the socio-economic development cost will be.
So obviously the tariff increases, let me just get some clarity here. So the tariff increases for this year will go ahead as planned. Will we see more of a tariff increase, I suppose, is what I'm asking you at this point, this year, to recoup this money?
No, it will reflect in the coming years.
So it'll reflect in the coming years. NERSA said it will draw an implementation plan for recovering these tariffs, as you mentioned as well. When is this going to be implemented? When will we get details about this?
Well, the process will start immediately. It starts with a conversation with the licensee as well as the consumers of electricity. So we're looking at something that perhaps with a plan that might be developed by July, August.
So obviously Eskom has asked for a specific tariff hike. What has NERSA agreed to? How much should the public expect to pay out in additional costs this year?
That has already been approved. Actually, it was approved before I joined. I joined NERSA, but somewhere around March. So it's in what is called the Eskom retail tariffs.
Yeah. Can you give us an amount at this point in time? I think that's what people are really looking for, and I suppose I'm looking for the same thing. Like, what are we as South Africans having to deal with all of this? What are we going to be paying more?
Well, the Eskom tariff at the moment, and remember, it's a wholesale tariff. So that wholesale tariff is then used by municipalities to then develop their own tariff. So the wholesale tariff at the moment, tariff from NERSA, it's about 85 South African cents per kilowatt hour. But that's not the price that the consumer out there will see, because municipalities would also add on their own charges. But Eskom retail client will probably see again, it's got inclining block tariffs, but they will always see in the order of R1.29 per kilowatt hour.
Sure. This is a very hard pill for South Africans to swallow, particularly at a time when people are losing jobs. Many South Africans are not working. There is no income. We're dealing at the moment with coronavirus. We're sitting at level 4. Many industries are still not up and running. Is this the best solution that could have been found, especially at a time like this?
Leanne, the truth of the matter is that the current pricing system is up. It needs a review. The electricity prices are running away from us. They're not good for Eskom. They're definitely not good for consumers. So something is got to be found. So that is, for instance, why my primary target is actually starting a conversation with the licensee Eskom, as well as all of the consumers of electricity.
I know in February, NERSA actually conducted public hearings in almost all of the provinces around South Africa. What were the hearings about, and this information, has it been factored into these increases for what South Africans are going through? Because, to be honest, what South Africans were going through in February and what they're going through now are almost two completely different stories, even though in February South Africans were still struggling under economic situations and joblessness, but now it's a dire situation. So these consultations, talk to us about them.
The public consultations, Lam, are meant to give all electricity stakeholders an opportunity to input and interrogate the tariff increases that are sought by Eskom. The challenge, though, is that until costs are disproved, or there is an indication of why a particular cost that has been presented as a real cost by Eskom, why that cost cannot be legitimately recognized, the regulator, unfortunately, is then forced to incorporate that cost into the pricing regime.
All right. Carry on.
Now, what I'm then saying, though, is that the stakeholder comments are actually taken into account, reviewed, and to the extent to which they can be incorporated into the decision, they are.
All right. Just one final question before I let you go. Can you update us on the outstanding cases between NERSA and Eskom now that this has been resolved? I mean, the outstanding may also include the 3-year 69 million rand cash injection by Treasury, which Eskom says is a bailout, while NERSA considered it a tariff subsidy. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, unfortunately, as you know, a number of these cases are subject to decay. But the idea here is that once we start a conversation with Eskom, which conversation is starting as early as Thursday, we will actually be better placed to resolve these issues than taking them to court. So the issue here is that, for instance, even with this RCA, they applied for 27 billion. We only allocated 13 billion.
Yeah.
So clearly there is a difference between our numbers, which inherently will actually lead to some form of a disagreement. The idea would be that we settle that disagreement out of court, because the court processes don't really add much to us, in the sense that the courts can't replace our decision with a new decision. They can only send the decision back to NERSA to say a review.
Okay. All right. We need to leave it there, I think. Nhlanhla Gumede from NERSA trying to explain to us why Eskom will be allowed now to recover a 13 billion rand loss by increasing power tariffs or tariffs to the public. So that wraps up our interview there. Apologies for the connection. I know it was a little bit difficult for it coming in and out, but I hope that you got the gist of it. But the bottom line is not good news for us tariff paying out there, because it is going to increase. So on top of all of the other burdens that you have, this is something, unfortunately, that you need to deal with as well. All right.